Hey, we're back from break.
Hello.
Hello. Cory, are you ready for an interview? You ready to answer some
Pep,
questions
pep,
for us?
pepper me with questions. Do it. Let's do it. Let's get this
Okay,
done. Yeah.
folks, we're back. We are just gonna jump into the interview portion and then maybe end the show with some more Kentucky Route Zero. It'll be really great. All right, Cory. On
Yeah.
this show, we try to think of a question that you, our special guest, is the best person to kind of answer or explain to a general audience about a thing that's related to folklore. And this week, we were wondering if you could help explain to the audience what folk belief is.
Oh, okay.
Thinking about you're so interested in supernatural and vernacular
Sure.
religion and all that kind of stuff. What's a folk belief?
Yeah, I was very much going to start with kind of the idea of the vernacular religion. We just lost, obviously, Leonard Primiano
Mm-hmm.
this year, which was very, very sad. For those who don't know him, he is essentially the person who coined this idea of vernacular religion, which just means it kind of means the way that people practice their belief systems, which may sound like, well, why do we need a term for that? But what it comes down to is there's sort of a sense of uh, there's the orthodoxy and there's the orthopraxy, which means that there's the right way of believing within a particular religious structure, and there's the right way of practicing within a religious structure. But then outside of that, in all, at least all that I've ever encountered and anything I've ever studied, there's this sense that the way that people actually practice their belief systems often wildly varies from what the official position on that is. So for example, I was raised Catholic, so I'm just going to kind of use that as a frame of reference. But this, obviously your mileage may vary on this. But the idea of holy water, for example, holy water has some very specific kind of connotations within the church. It's used as you sort of enter the church to sort of bless yourself as you walk in, and it's the sort of sanctifying thing. But then if you go, for example, there's this little Marian Grotto that you can go to in New Orleans, where they literally have basically like a giant Gatorade cooler of holy water sitting out in the
Love
grotto.
that.
You can just kind of fill it up because they know that they're going to come and take this stuff. Because what they'll do is they'll just like slam like bottles full of
Oh
water
my
up against the
gosh.
sides of their house or all over their house, because they just need to, like, if you're moving into a house and you want to bless it, you'll add it to your bath if you feel like you're having bad luck, and it'll kind of peel that luck away from you. So it's this kind of system of how do you actually do your belief system? How do you actually put it into practice? How do you actually use it? And folk belief can also have to do with how you believe within that system too. So some of the way that you understand religion, or the way that you understand kind of your faith structure, may not be the same way that, if you talk to an official, deacon or priest or imam or elder within that tradition. They may say, "Oh, this is the way it is, and here's how we know that from the sort of ordained position." But your interpretation may be like, "Well, that's not how I see it. Here's how I see it, and here's how I kind of connect with it." So yeah, it's just kind of the way that sort of a broader population within a faith actually does that faith. So I hope that answered your question, probably
I
in a very long-winded way, but
I mean, I think it does. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Um, the next question that we have on our list for you is what we took a while trying to figure out the best way to ask this question. I think we landed on something really good.
okay.
So what is the difference between how our grandparents and how like children today engage with the supernatural, thinking of the supernatural as a kind of folk belief?
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't want to do blanket generalizations, because I think there's always been people who are
Sure.
fascinated by the supernatural. And really, when you say our grandparents, if I point to my grandparents' generation, that's the generation that would have been at least on the tail end, if not in the middle of spiritualism, at least in
Right.
in
Mm-hmm.
the United States. So there would have been a very strong, um, I don't know if positive is the way to frame that, but there would have been a very strong interest in the supernatural, even going back to the early 20th century, late 19th century. And now, I think that there's an equal fascination with the supernatural, to the point where I think the supernatural is as captivating to us today uh, uh, as a sort of entertainment, and as a sort of source of belief, as a source of identity as well for a lot of people. We have a sense that, if we're connected to something that not everyone else can see or understand or connect to, that it can make us feel special in a way. And I'm not saying that like that's wrong either. I'm saying that's just one of the ways that it gets sort of used. There's a really there's he's not, I don't think he's a folklorist, but he's a sort of a rhetorician, Joshua Gunn, who did this book on sort of systems of sort of occult language, and talking about how people use the sort of language of the occult as a way of sort of obfuscating and obscuring things, and sort of keeping people at arm's length, because it makes you feel like you're like you're part of something special to be within that. And so many folk groups do this, right? So many folk groups have jargon or things like that,
right.
So our grandparents, like, can I ask a clarifying question on this?
Yeah,
like, are
yeah.
you asking are you asking for like generations that would have been sort of afraid of the supernatural versus our generation, which seems to be both titillated and afraid by the supernatural? Is that kind of what you're wanting to explore?
That I think is closer to it. I guess in my mind, one of the ways I was thinking about it is like, how do we see it in like representations in our daily life? Like, as in, we like hanging out with spooky stuff versus spooky stuff is bad and we need to keep it away from our homes or something like that. Those kinds of dynamics.
Yeah, that's so funny to me. Just because, like, if you go back into the 19th century, 18th century, 17th century, the further back you go, it's not that people are not interested in or captivated by spooky stuff, or even to the sense of sort of like wanting to participate in. Like, you can go back to, there were accounts during for example, this is such a loaded way to go, but like the Salem witch trials, right? Where there are some pretty clear indications that some of the people that were caught up in those trials were doing occult activities. Now, that doesn't mean they were witches or doing witchcraft as sort of everyone sort of popularly understood it. But we know, for example, there was a woman named Dorcas Hoare who was doing fortune telling. She'd been arrested several times in the decades prior to the trials for doing that exact thing. There are accounts of using something called a Venus glass to sort of foretell a future husband, which is not an unusual practice for adolescents. So there's always that fascination with it. At the same time, David Hall did a wonderful book, Worlds of Wonder, Days of Judgment, where he talks about kind of like how, if you were living at that time or even a little after that time, the supernatural was very real to you. It was very real. We're very aware that at any given moment, something pretty terrifying could be lurking just around the corner, and that you were sort of caught up in this almost divine conflict between these kind of spooky supernatural things and what's funny is, like, spooky supernatural things and friendly supernatural things, or things that were that were godly or holy in some way, right? So you had divine intercession that could help you, but you also had diabolical intercession that could come against you in some way. So there definitely was a sense like, oh, it's very real and it's very, very present in our lives. And you had people kind of pushing back against that too, but it was very dominant. And now what's really funny is that we have this, I think, a culture where we believe it less. We believe it sort of less concretely than they believed it, but we're even more engaged with it and more fascinated by it. We want it more, which is why you have.
That's fascinating. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's why you have things like witch talk, right? It's why you have this kind of like burst of interest in the supernatural and burst of interest in the occult and the burst of interest. And we've had cycles of that, obviously. But the other side of that that's really funny to me is, like, we're talking about like, oh, we want to be far, they were far away from the spooky stuff, or they were, more upset by it, and we're, more engaged with it. But if you think about what they were doing in their day-to-day lives, they were dealing with death on a much more intimate and personal scale. There were, they had to, deal with, cooling boards and bodies in their living rooms for wakes and things like that. Animal, if they were processing animals, and I don't want to get too graphic with that because I know people are not That's not what this is for. But they're processing animals for food. We don't do that. We go and get a styrofoam wrapped thing in a grocery store. We're not as close to that as they were.
Totally.
So it's funny to me to have that kind of like mentality of like, we're really fascinated by it now, even though we're more removed from the sort of physical realities of it at times.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. First of all, thank you everybody who's giving us subs right now. We're getting we've gotten a hype train because people just love your answer so much that they're giving us subs and bits and things like that. So thank you everybody. Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense, and it helps me because this is like a weird tension, right? Because it's not. It's like people don't believe it as much, or maybe they're just like the more skeptical, but are like the skepticism is replaced by like, I don't know, personal investment or something, interest, like an intense fascination. And that's such I think, a helpful way to think about it. And that's really cool.
I like your word there, investment, because I really think that's accurate. I think that we do get really invested in the narrative that we create around supernatural. Whereas the narrative that was around the supernatural, say in like 1820, was a little more communal. It was a little more, everybody sort of shared the narrative. And now we all kind of have our personal narratives about the supernatural. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but it is fascinating to kind of see that. I think that's interesting.
Totally. That's so cool. Wow. Yeah, thanks, chat. We're also collecting some chat questions for you. I'll come back to those at the end, as you know that we will. But just know, chat, I know I see them. They're on a list. Okay, next question that we have here. How do you integrate folk traditions into your life that help you deepen your understanding of magic?
Oh, okay. This is a fine question. I'm about to go down.
Yeah.
So for me, and I've talked about this in a couple of different places. For me, magic is essentially, it's rhetorical. It's a grammar. It's a way of communicating. And for me, that does tie into my own personal sort of belief systems. That there's a language that magic speaks, and so when you're combining certain things together, say you've got this herb, and this particular phrase that you're using from a grimoire or a psalm book or whatever it is that you're pulling your phrasing from, and you combine those things together and create this sort of like house for a spirit that's going to help you out to do some sort of task that you need done, maybe find a job or something like that. When you do that, you're basically creating a sentence. You're basically you have maybe your herbs are your adjectives, right? The charm itself is the verb. You are the subject, right? And by combining those things in a certain way, you're sort of speaking a sentence into being. And for some people, that's a very internal process, and so it's just that they need to articulate their desires metaphorically. And by doing that, that allows them to go and accomplish whatever it is, because they're working on both a sort of conscious level and a subconscious level at that point. Or for some people, it's externalized, right? It's this real sense of the supernatural is actually intervening or connecting in their life, which is how a lot of religions work, is the sense of the supernatural or the other than mundane is connected to their life. Now, in terms of the folk belief and stuff that I grew up around a lot of southern folk beliefs, so there's a lot of stuff that's kind of in there. I also grew up, like I said, I was raised Catholic, and so there's a lot of folk beliefs in Catholicism that are not officially ordained.
Oh my gosh,
tons of stuff there, and so that inflects a lot of my personal practices. In my personal way of interacting with the world at large. But it also is one of those things where it makes, for me, also doing folklore research, it's made me sort of be able to sort of sit back and go like, okay, so I might see what somebody's doing in my own framework as like, oh, that's something magical. But I also know that might not be the framework that they're using, and it might not be how they would refer to it. And so I have to kind of think about that and say, look, for them, this is more of a miracle, or for them, this is more of a divine intervention or good fortune. They're not going to use the same framework or the same terminology as I might use, both as a folklorist and as a practitioner. So
that's so insightful. Yeah, I think that's really cool. And maybe because it has become relevant again, the chat question that one of them that we've gotten so far from Hey Dom T who says, as a fellow raised Catholic, who is your favorite obscure saint?
Oh God, I don't know. I mean,
thinking about folk belief and sort of non-traditional ways that we talk about our religious
I
practices.
really like. There's a folk saint from, I believe he's from Guatemala, Maximon, who's sometimes related to San Simon, and he is this. He's totally a folk saint. He's not canonized by the church at all, and so he's really fascinating. He's kind of this, very rough and tumble, guarista kind of. He's got bandoliers kind of across his chest, and he has a rifle in his hand, and like to interact with him, they put a cigar in the mouth of his effigy and let it smoke the cigar and stuff like that.
It's so badass. Yes.
So badass.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so that one is really interesting. There are also some really interesting ones, and not to go down any particular roads with this, but there's some that have to do with so for example, there's Jesus Malverde, who is Jesus of the Bad Green, which basically he's a protector of people who are working in illicit trades. So this can be narcotraficantes, people who are doing drug smuggling, because it's really important to remember the people who are sometimes doing the drug smuggling, they're not cartel bigwigs, right? Sometimes they're just people trying to pay a bill, or be able to feed a family, right? And I'm not saying give everybody every kind of pass all the time forever, but these are people who are like, I just need to do this thing so that I can pay for this food that my family needs, and so they invoke this folk saint to kind of help them do that. And there are similar saints. I think Jesus Malverde is also appealed to by sex workers. I know Santa Muerte is appealed to by sex workers. And again, this is something where I'm like, for me, the way I see sex work as work, and it needs to be understood that people in those jobs are doing real work, real labor. And so it makes total sense that they're looking for something to protect them and help keep them safe.
Keep them safe. Yeah,
absolutely.
It makes total sense. It's so cool. Yeah. It's like you read the textbook version of the saint and you're like, okay, I think I know what this means. And then it's like people went, but wait, what if? And then it's like totally relevant to exactly what they're interpreting. It's so cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So you mentioned witch talk before, and I do have a TikTok question for you.
Oh, goody.
So I'm so glad that you brought that up, because it was like leading right in perfectly. So we are curious what your thoughts about TikTok or other social media platforms were as like teaching tools for introducing religious folk practices. So thinking like how to do a thing, but on TikTok or like other kinds of social media platforms to invite people into those religious spaces.
Yeah, I mean, as a springboard for discovery, I think there's some value. So I'll start with some of the big advantages to this. One, you're finding a lot of communities that historically have not been able to have a voice at the table, even in some of these kind of obscure spaces. They're getting a voice. So you have a lot of people who are, for example, in sort of the hashtag brujo or hashtag bruja sort of line of things on Instagram, maybe on TikTok as witch talk as well. And so those are things where you have people that are able to sort of elevate a voice that maybe has not been elevated before. And that's really valuable. I think that's really, really good. And you have people connecting as well, which is wonderful, because people are saying like, I didn't know about this practice that is associated with the people I come from. And they learn something about that, and it gives them a place to go with further examination, further study. I do think Instagram provides a little more texture and nuance than something like Witch Talk does. Not a ton more, and you definitely have sort of idea of aesthetics that plays into Instagram as well. But they do allow for a little bit more of a engagement and longer form kind of stuff. Something like TikTok, I think is there's some really cool stuff about it, because you wind up with a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm that gets generated by TikTok, and you can even generate some really interesting sort of novel traditions, like we mentioned during the the Kentucky Route Zero
Yeah.
chat, Bones Day.
Yes, Bones Day. Yes.
Which is totally it's totally kind of fortune telling.
It's
kind
like
of
taken
stuff, right?
off. Totally.
Yeah. Which is what I think it's lovely to have
Yeah.
these and have this kind of like fun version of that.
Yes. Thank you to Dr. Chrissy Woodmayer for introducing us all to that during AFS and being very adamant that we check our Twitter every morning to see if it's a Bones Day.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. No, Noodle's fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the one problem I see with something like TikTok is that it is highly compressed and highly decontextualized. So it's you kind of have to seek out if somebody does post a multi-video explanation of something which gives more context. You have to really seek that out. And if you're just kind of scrolling, you're not necessarily going to get all that in a 30-second to 3-minute video. It's just it's there's too much to try to absorb. And so I think again, as a jumping off point, interesting, absolutely has some validity. I also think that anything that's wrong or bad also gets spread virally in that situation too. So you can have some really damaging stuff that winds up out there where people will say something is a cultural practice when it's not, or they'll try to cancel a person or a group of people over something that there's just been no nuance in sort of the discussion about it at that point.
Right.
And since we've got no nuance November going now, obviously, so it's been a minute. So yeah,
I've even seen on TikTok, like, I will get suggested like the part 2 of something because it's like the more interesting part than the first or the third part or whatever. And like I always think that's really interesting too, like which piece of that, like what are the aesthetics at play that make that piece the more interesting part, even though it's all like necessary to understand. Yeah, for sure. That's cool. So we are getting to I wanted to ask too, I forgot about Appalachian Witch Talk. Are you on Appalachian Witch Talk specifically?
I'm not.
Okay,
no,
I was just curious if that was like a vein that you were interested in, just because we've been talking about Kentucky Route Zero and
no, I'm very interested in Appalachian folk magic, but
okay.
but Appalachian Witch Talk is not something I've looked at, just because honestly with Witch Talk, the stuff that I consume on Witch Talk is largely like a guy doing various like nature videos about animals and things like that. Like I tend not to focus on the witchy side of stuff or the supernatural side of stuff, just because it's too decontextualized for me.
Yeah, it's like right, I get it. It feels too out of context, and it's like either you already know it or are like, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't have the resources today to go into figuring out whether or not this is actually something that I should be concerned with. So
definitely. So we had Dan Peretti on the show a while back, and he talked a lot about Santa Claus. I think you know this is coming. Who is Krampus, and why is this figure's popularity steadily rising?
Well, weirdly, I think it's actually a Lil Wayne, not Lil Wayne like but Lil Wayne like it's on a little bit of a waning cycle at this point. So that's not the best Lil Wayne impersonation anyone's ever gonna get.
I want to make the waning cycle now. I'm making that meme. The waning cycle.
We're having a Lil Wayne this month. Yeah. But anyway, so I think he had a crest of popularity that kind of also tied into the time when the movie with Adam Scott was out, a couple years ago. There was a lot of he was showing up on like American Dad and things like that. But I think in the past year or two with the pandemic, there has been, because a lot of the energy around him has been sort of connected with people doing these live events, these Krampuslavs or Krampusnachts. Because people haven't been able to do those things, there's really a performative parade element that is part of that, and so the energy has kind of waned a little bit. Although they are still doing these events, they've been pared down so much that it's hard to generate that enthusiasm. But okay, so you asked who is this, right?
Yeah, whoever, for people who don't know this mystical creature that we're discussing, who's Krampus?
So this is one of the many companions of Saint Nicholas or Santa Claus, however you want to register. It's really always Saint Nicholas. But this is sometimes it's an individual Krampus, sometimes it's a whole troop of Krampusen that are these kind of big, hairy, devil-like creatures with these long tongues. They're often kind of very shaggy. They have bells. They're kept in chains. There's a chain around their neck most of the time that St. Nicholas can control them with. And they're not the only one of these. There's a ton of these different kind of like Christmas companion, what I call Christmas monster figures, that that are connected with this holiday season. And they don't just show up on Christmas. Like this is for a lot of places, particularly in Europe. This happens really from the beginning of December right to the beginning of January. So this could show up anytime in there. But this goes around, this creature goes around. St. Nicholas and Krampus will show up on your doorstep. Your children will have to come and face them, and if they've been good, St. Nicholas will give them nice things. If they've been bad, then Krampus is there and he's threatening to beat them with his bundle of switches, or to stuff them in the sack or basket on his back and take them off to hell or Spain, because it's one or the other, apparently.
I mean,
or they're the same. I don't know.
Does this have anything to do with Catholicism? Because
sure, what doesn't?
Yeah.
In Europe, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So there's so this is this kind of dark companion to Nicholas that is the sort of punishment side of things. And what's interesting is in America he fused with the St. Nicholas figure, and we get something called the Belschnickel here in Pennsylvania German territory,
Yes.
whereas so this kind of big, shaggy, furry, very grumpy looking Santa figure comes around and will both punish and reward. And then that kind of gets reflected back in kind of our contemporary lore about Santa Claus, where he sees you when you're sleeping, he sees when you're awake, he knows when you've been good or bad. Right. Yeah. And then we have I don't know, like you might wind up with coal and switches in your stocking was a pretty common threat when I was growing up.
I always, you know what's funny? I always heard it as sticks. But now I'm obviously that was probably just switches, but it just got like transformed into sticks. But yeah, it probably was a switch. Yeah,
that's what it is. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you know that I have an axolotl named Krampus?
That's so wonderful that you have an axolotl.
I have two. Yeah, and I've had them for like 8 years, but I don't think I ever told you that my axolotl's name is Krampus.
No. That's delightful.
Yes.
I would love to meet your axolotl.
Oh my gosh.
That is so, what's your other axolotl's name?
DB, which stands for dirtbag, because he looks like he's a leucistic axolotl, and he looks like he's got like dirt all over his face. And Krampus is huge. She's like a foot long now.
Wow,
like
that is big.
They're very big. Yeah, and maybe not. I might be exaggerating. She might be like 10 inches. But still really big. Yeah, she's all black and has a vitiligo, so she has some like white spots peeking through now. Anyway,
interesting.
Axolotl sidetrack, but
yeah, that's wonderful. I love that. The Minecraft update this year must have been like your cup of tea.
It was
all
so
over the
much
place.
fun. We actually played it on stream for a minute while I was testing my equipment out, we played and I tried to find axolotls, couldn't find them, so I just went in creative mode and just made a lake of axolotls. It was pretty magical. But yeah, I feel like I have more questions about Krampus too. Like why horror? 'Cause monster? That's my dream brain question. Is that all? Like I guess why does Santa Claus need an opposite? Is that just like the nature of symbols or something?
Sure. Well, I mean, and think about the time of year that this is happening, right? This is the longest nights of the year. You're going to have people telling ghost stories. You're going to have people. You can't do farming. You can't go out and farm in the fields. You're inside a lot. You're around a campfire. There's lots of shadows everywhere. Of course, everybody's peeped out. They're going to be telling stories. Is the line in the song about there'll be tales of the glories, scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long ago, because ghost stories have been a long-standing tradition at this time of year. Henry James used to write. I think The Turn of the Screw was technically a Christmas ghost story when he wrote it. So all these things are these, there's this need for something in the darkness to sort of scare us. And then you need something to give you hope too, and that's where the St. Nicholas, the sort of the positive side, comes into that. So and again, Krampus is not the only one. Krampus is really only found in parts of Austria and the sort of Alps, a little bit of Germany, a little bit of Switzerland, But there's these other companions. You have Pierre Fitard, you have Schwarz Pietz, Black Peter,
Yeah.
all these different kind of like figures that are kind of roaming around Chert and
Yeah.
the Bohemian areas. So these figures are, there's not just one. We need these kind of like scary things in that season, because that is their time. That is the time that they belong in. That's the darkest time of the year. So
Oh,
yeah, that's kind of what I'd say.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Are you ready for some fun questions?
Let's do it.
Okay. Before we get into the fun questions, I didn't say it earlier, but I'm going to say it now. Thank you to our sleuthing team who came up with these questions. If you heard something that you liked so far, it's because of the wonderful and intrepid and marvelous and fantastic sleuthing team that exists behind the camera. You don't always get to see them, but they're there and helping us curate these questions. So I didn't say it earlier, saying it now. Thank the sleuths. Don't thank me. Don't thank Dom. Thank the team. Okay.
They do the hard work. They do the real labor.
I mean,
we know this.
We have said use the powers for good and not evil is what we have said sometimes. So.
Thank you. I actually appreciate that.
So our frenzy question that we have to start us off totally relates to Krampus, and what we really want to know is if we would ever see Gritty, Philadelphia mascot, Gritty, and Krampus together at the same festival, and in what scenario that could happen.
Could, yes. There's a Philadelphia Krampuslauf. That's actually where I did my dissertation. Was Philly Krampuslauf, and there's a lot of love for Gritty in Philadelphia. And the Krampuslauf has actually transformed into a festive parade of spirits. So it really honors any kind of wintertime spirit. Now, I will
hockey
say that
makes sense. Wintertime sports, wintertime spirits. This is good. Okay.
So I think I think that Gritty would be welcome. We're very clear that he was not there to make fun of the people participating in this. I think they would be open to that, because there's a lot of love for Gritty among the people who are a part of this, but they also don't want to necessarily have something, because for some people this is a very deep and moving experience to be a part of this procession, and so having Gritty there, if Gritty's just kind of stealing the thunder and all that, then that would be disappointing.
Sure.
But in spirit, sure, yeah. I think it would be possible that you could see Gritty at this kind of a festival for sure. Yeah.
Is it too much of a leap to make a connection between the two monster-esque figures? I say esque for Gritty. I guess he's a monster. Not really sure.
Oh, he's totally a cryptid.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a
cryptid, right? Yeah. Okay. So would it be too much of a leap to make some kind of bringing them together connection about consumerism and capitalism, critiquing like gifting culture or something in a band against Santa Claus or the state or something? I feel like there could be a political alignment here.
Between Gritty and Krampus? That's interesting, because I mean, Gritty is a mascot and therefore kind of a tool of capitalism.
I know. It's so fascinating.
But he's also he in meme form, at least.
Yes.
He seems to be used as a sort of he seems to be used as a very sort of counter-capitalist, alt-right sort of figure, right? He's the one who's going to go punch a Pepe the Frog in the face, right?
Right.
And so in that situation, I sort of think, I think Gritty is kind of chaos. Maybe he's chaotic, maybe chaotic good, maybe chaotic neutral.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I think he and the Krampus would get along really well, because the Krampus is, his function is to be evil, but kind of evil for the sake of good.
But so is okay.
Sort of there to serve.
So now I'm like, is Krampus lawful evil? Is that because he's okay?
Sure, yeah. Why would he not be, right?
Why would he not be? Yeah.
Through his evil, right? He's upholding the order, the social order. And so, I don't know, would they be aligned? I think they could totally smash some stuff up. They might also come into conflict. They might do some shoving. So
okay, cool. Thank you for that thoughtful answer.
It's way too much thought to put into Gritty versus Krampus. Also, I think Gritty would win in a one-on-one versus Krampus, but it's important to remember that in a lot of places, Krampus travels in troops. So
that's true.
Could Gritty take out 12 Krampusen? I don't know. That's an interesting battle.
I don't know. We would have to gather evidence.
Could you have Gritty and the Philly Fanatic both take on like a team of Krampusen, and like I would pay for that? Yes,
I would pay for that. That would be awesome. Oh my gosh.
For sure.
All right, we have another question. A developing theory on our show is that folklorists are theater kids, or in some form were a theater kid. Do you agree, disagree, and why?
Based on my own experiences,
based on
I have to agree.
Okay.
Because I was a theater kid. I mean,
okay,
my minor was theater in my undergrad. I did a lot of acting up through my mid-20s. I also did some tech and some stage management stuff here and there. My podcasting partner and I actually met while doing a play. So, yeah, and I mean, I've never been leading man material, and I with that, I do not want the pressure that comes along with that. But
yes.
like, give me a good comic villain, and I'm there. So
very good. I didn't start as a theater kid, but was brought in to theater by the folklorists. So we're working.
Folklorist is a gateway drug to theater.
There it is, folks. That's it.
Or vice versa. It could go both ways.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. I have an item that I need you to explain to the chat. Maybe we can explain it together.
Oh dear.
It's something that sits above this sits above my desk, and I look at it a lot. I want you to know it's not like something I brought out for this. It's something that exists here always, and I looked at it and I was like, I need to talk to Cory about this. This is the item.
I can't see anything. You're just
my gosh.
on my screen.
Is there? Hold on. Let me figure out how to do this. What's the best way to do this?
Can you drop a picture of it in the chat?
Yeah, hold
or
on.
the Discord chat?
Yeah, I can do that really quick. I didn't even think about that. I'm gonna show it to the people because you're gonna look at it and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, this thing is terrible that you have, and you still have it, but also it's probably sweet that you have it. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna post it in Stream Mods.
Okay, Stream Mods. There we go.
Do. Here it is. Boom.
Okay.
It's loading. It's loading. This is very suspenseful.
It's very. I know the tension. The tension is terrible. I hope it'll last. Okay.
This is an item that I have.
Sure.
And this item has Lynn McNeil's, Andrew Akida's, and your signature on the bottom of it. And it was acquired at the Belief auction. I don't know if y'all can I'm showing the chat the signatures. It's not really doing a good job at focusing. I promise they're there, people. This is from the Belief auction at AFS, and I ended up taking this home. Is it haunted? Tell me more about the Belief auction and whether or not you think it is in fact haunted.
Okay. I was just working the table that day. I have no idea. It looks haunted as shit to me.
Doesn't it look haunted? Oh my gosh.
That monkey does not have good intentions. I can tell you that.
It just, it really doesn't. Here, I'll send you a picture of the signatures too, because it's hysterical. I don't know whose it was. I don't know.
Is it perpetually stuck at that time?
Well, so it is and isn't, because it was for a long time, and then I went, well, this probably works and just needs a new battery. So I did take it out and replace the battery, but it used the battery like in a week.
Well, clearly
it's so fast, and so it just died. And it's cursed. It's something. It's just a very fond memory that I have with you at the Belief auction. Kent, what is the Belief auction for the people who don't understand what that is?
So we sell off people's various belief systems, and you're able to adopt. No, I'm lying. That's a lie. That's incorrect. No. The folk belief section of the American Folklorist Society. We have a silent auction every year where people will bring in the people who are members of that section will bring in kind of, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like they're just finding the most esoteric, off the wall crap that they can find and bringing it in. And sometimes I sit there and I go, was this just something that got left in the suitcase when they packed? Like, I just don't know. Sometimes I wonder if they, are just trying to clean out their closet or something. But generally speaking, it's something that they've sort of they've thought about. Like I think I have a piece. I think I have a carved cross made from olive wood from the Holy Land. So you can have something like that.
Yeah.
Or you can have this terrifying monkey statue that is clearly. I mean, have you finished your dissertation yet, Daisy?
No, not yet. No.
This clock is why. This clock is.
Oh
exactly
my god! Oh no! So you're telling me I have to do some kind of like removal of it and the feeling that it is imbued into my walls for the last like 3 years? Oh god.
I mean, there's some cleansing that has to happen
here.
Oh
no!
I mean, what I would do is I would set the time to the date of your dissertation defense.
Oh my!
And like
that sounds like. What if it? That sounds scary. I'm afraid to do that. What if it? What if something happens at that time? Okay, maybe. I don't know. I might test it out. I did just keep choosing, like, let's just explore all the spooky stuff. So maybe I should do it that way.
You're like, let's go ahead first. Look,
let's
you have the power of Lynn and Andrea and my signature.
Yeah.
To control its evil intents.
I don't think I would not have kept it if you three had not like bestowed some kind of folkloric mystical wisdom upon it through your signatures.
Our blessing protects all.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my god.
No, I agree. Sometimes I look at the belief auction and I'm like, someone brought that? Did they sign up? Did they tell you what they were bringing, or did they just show up and say put this in the auction?
People will just show up. Like, there was somebody that brought in Donald Trump toilet paper one time, and it was like, okay, so
sure.
But then I've also gotten like a stack of old. They were like a local Catholic diocese folklore newsletter or something like that. It's just like it could be anything, and sometimes it's amazing, and sometimes it's like cursed monkey clock, and that's what you have. So
that is it. Yes, people have told me to like make it worse, like put red gem eyes on the monkey and things. I'm not sure I'm prepared to do that. I find it quite strange as it is.
Can you replace the winding mechanism with a music box that winds down very slowly?
I cannot.
So that, like,
nope, can't do that. I can't do that for several reasons. Too scary.
Oh my goodness! God. Have you tried stealing the monkey's coat to see what happens?
No, it's such a strange material.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, people. Maybe I should turn it into a basketball or something. I could like paint it. I could do something. I could.
What if you make the monkey angry?
I could recontextualize it. I know. That's why I haven't touched it at all. And in fact, I did repair it once.
See, so you've done service to but like I just see you like messing with that coconut, and then like the next day you get up and the monkey's no longer on the clock. And,
oh my god!
And
or
just,
like
that's the end of your day.
Or the clock is like ticking again, and I have not replaced the battery. Oh my god!
Running backwards.
Uh-oh. Time
or all
is.
Of a sudden
when will
the
it
hands
stop?
are set to your birthday.
That would be so weird. Oh my god. I have another very fun question for you before we play a game together.
Okay.
We know you have a Buffy podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We have to ask the age-old question: Angel or Spike?
Oh, Spike. What? No, that's not a question. Are you serious? What? No.
This is a question from...
I'm sorry.
So, for context also, very few of us have seen Buffy, except for this one sleuth who has seen a lot of Buffy.
Yeah.
And
no, I mean...
So,
yeah.
do you have a reason or explanation for why Spike?
I mean, Spike is by far the more interesting character to me. To my podcast partner will literally stake me through the heart if I say anything other than that. I actually got them a cameo from James Marsters, who plays Spike, as a birthday gift this past year.
That's awesome.
So like, yeah, so it's like they're a super fan of Spike, but then like Spike makes some really bad decisions kind of later in the series a few times and does some terrible things. But it's important to remember that at the time, Spike is still a monster. When he's doing that stuff. Angel Angel just kind of broods a lot, and like he, wants to, Batman off a building in his billowy trench cloak, which, you do you, Angel. That's fine, and that's nothing against Dave Boreanaz. Dave Boreanaz is delightful, does some really fun stuff with it, but yeah, no, Spike is like, he's just crunchy and interesting. Like he is evil and like still fun to watch. Like even when he's being like, it's way more interesting to have a compelling villain than a compelling hero to me. Which is why I love Spike so much. So he's just so much more of an interesting character.
I think that is a wonderful answer.
Yeah, quoterat demonstrandum, QED. We're done. Yeah, that's it. Spike. There's the mathematical proof. Whatever.
Love it. Cory, you've seen the show before. Are you ready to play a game with us?
Let's do it. What do we got?
Okay. So while I'm setting up a game here, I think Carrie, are you still with us?
I sure am, kids.
Oh, would
Hi,
you?
Carrie.
Hello again.
Hi.
Thank you for managing and monitoring the chat for us while we do this thing. I know it's usually my job, but it's not today. It's
not today.
Would you kindly ask Cory one or two of the chat questions while I flip over to our game that we're gonna play?
I sure could. We've already covered the favorite obscure saint from the Raised Catholic gang.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a question: would James Joyce's The Dead be considered Christmas spooky, or just a generalized holiday depression?
I mean, you could probably describe a lot of James Joyce's work as generalized holiday depression. Honestly, just which holiday is it? And again, if you're raised Catholic, as James Joyce is, every day is a holiday. So sure, yeah. I don't know. I think The Dead. I don't think he wrote it explicitly as a Christmas ghost story. So I wouldn't lay that on it. But sure, if you want to make that your tradition to read The Dead every year at Christmas, and you want to ruin your holiday that way, I'm not going to stop you. Please have fun.
Perfect. And then last question we got: could the act of a song getting stuck in one's head be a form of magic that songwriters subconsciously tap into? Or consciously, I'm looking at you, Stevie Nicks.
Okay, so I've got a story. I saw Stevie Nicks at a concert once, and okay, she leans into the white witch trope. She calls herself the white witch. She leans into this witch trope really, really heavily, but she won't ever come out and actually say like, yes, I'm actually a practicing witch, which drives us all crazy if we're on the witchy side of things. But I was at this this concert where she was performing, and there was this enormous storm, and we really thought, oh man, we're only gonna get to hear about half an hour and it's gonna get canceled. It's gonna, she's gonna have to shut it down because this big storm, you can see it rolling in. And she does this one song, I think it was Silver Springs, and she does her little song, and then she says, okay, I'm going to leave the stage for a minute and bring somebody else up for just a song or two. And it was Sheryl Crow, of all people, who comes in and sings. She left the stage just as the rain started to fall. All of a sudden, the rain pattered off to a drizzle, and literally the clouds became a circle around the arena that she was playing in, because it's an outdoor arena, right? Or an outdoor space, and it becomes a circle. So we were in this kind of like eye of the hurricane, as these clouds pass around us. Oh my
god!
And then Stevie Nicks comes back out and starts singing again as the storm passes us, and we're like,
oh my god!
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know what she did backstage, but there is definitely like something burning in an altar tray somewhere that has fixed this problem. So she's pretty phenomenal. In terms of like, I totally think
Mac she's got there.
Right, like I mean, if I were Lindsey Buckingham, I would never leave my house. Like, I'd be like, no. If I walk outside today, she's just gonna get me. She's gonna find me.
Oh so. My god! Wow, that's
but
miraculous.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. So in terms of the earworm, I like totally think you could like design a weird like thought form magical entity as an earworm and insert it into your song. And okay, and there are some really cool people. Like I think Coltrane did this amazing thing with harmonics in music, where he sort of visualized the harmonics of the scales in music, and like found that there were these basically like sort of pentagrammal structures in them, and like, but he visualized it in such a way that you can look at it and go like, that looks like a magic sigil, right? That looks like a magic marking of some kind.
Oh my gosh.
so musicians really do have more of a mastery of this in some ways than people would ever give them credit for.
That is so cool. What? Wow, what a way to segue to a tier list, which I have shared with you. I don't know if you have hit watch stream or not, or if you were watching stream the whole time on Discord.
I have not, but let's do it.
But
okay,
let's do it. So,
right.
we could think of no other fun to have with you than to do a tier list of what you call on your website from your most recent episode of the podcast, New World Witchery, serialized spookiness with a dash of silliness.
Yes.
And so
right.
here, we are going to make you, or ask you, to rank these in order of your favorite, from S to D. Have you ever made a tier list before?
I know, I've seen them. I know the concept, right? So, but no, I haven't actually made a tier list, right? So,
okay.
But best is S, worst is D, right? So.
Yes, best is S, worst is D. For those who don't know in the chat, tier lists come from fighting games, and they've become really popular for people to rank all different types of things, pop culture and otherwise. And today we will be ranking some TV series that have spookiness and silliness to them. As Cory would of course be the expert on, which is the best for sure.
Let's hope. I see one in here I'm not sure about.
So we're gonna give you a hot one right off, a controversial hot one right off at the beginning here. Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Ooh, that's tough, man. Why would you do that to me?
Okay. We can also come back to it, and you are also allowed to change your opinion as the list goes on.
Yeah, I know. You're like, okay.
You can really make this your own here.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna slip Buffy into A.
Okay.
Because it is very good. There is some really good spooky stuff in there. There's some stuff behind the scenes that was spooky in the wrong way. So I don't want to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe we have to listen to your podcast to.
There's some bad stuff that happened. But and then there's also some stuff that it gets blatantly wrong too. So I'm gonna say a little less on that one.
Okay. So. What about the Cartoon Network miniseries Over the Garden Wall?
Oh, sweet mother of
I'm so sorry.
I love that show.
I love the show. I watch it every fall season. Always, of course, particularly around Halloween.
It is a perfect show for the fall. I mean, there's nothing. Oof. Okay, I'm sorry. S. It's an absolute S level. Yeah.
Nice.
For sure.
Next we have now one of the Coven members' heads have been cut off of this, but you might recognize this team from the show Salem.
Okay, Salem's a guilty pleasure. I'll be really honest. It's a filthy little guilty pleasure that I enjoy, and it weirdly has a couple of good folk moments in it. Like it actually taps into some of the folklore of magic. It is not historically accurate at all.
Sure,
even a little bit. I'm gonna leave it in guilty pleasure status. Let's give it just right into the middle.
At B.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Another difficult one. Gravity Falls. A show about how to engage with the supernatural today, set in Oregon, which is a state I hold dear to my heart, and I'm on episode 4, I think. I'm watching it with my partner who I live with, and I know that you love it. Obviously, look at the background there. It's so good.
It's right there.
It's right there.
I mean, this is S. Is there a way to do super S? Can it just sit?
It can be top of S. Top of S?
It is top of S. It has to be. It's so good. If you have not treated yourself to Gravity Falls out there, do so. It's only 2 seasons. It is literally only 2 seasons, and it accomplishes everything it could hope to accomplish. It is magnificent. If you haven't seen the kind of, I'm not going to call it a follow-up series, but it also has a lot of the same people behind it, and it is really, really good. And also has a lot of witchy stuff in it, which is the Owl House.
Oh, well, we're going to get to that. Don't worry.
Okay.
Save your Owl House thoughts for a moment.
Okay, hold it. Oh, it's there. It's there in the bottom. I see it.
Because I haven't seen it yet, but I need your recommendation. For those of you who can see my camera, Cory can't see it right now, but my sign in the back, I have changed the text this week, and it says, "Stay curious, stay weird, stay kind." And I couldn't fit the rest of the Dipper quote on there, which ends with something like, don't let anybody ever tell you you're not worth something. And so I also love Dipper, and I love the whole cast.
Dipper's great. Wendy's great.
Yeah.
Mabel's great.
They're all great. Yeah.
Grunkle Stan is great.
Grunkle Stan. Yes. Next up, in somewhat of a historic callback and or opposition to some of these shows, Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Gang.
Yeah.
Kind of a classic.
It is a classic. It's not. It's neither here nor there. Now, I will say there's a lot of people that really, because there's a Scooby-Doo movie called Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, which was one of the few times it accurately portrayed Wicca. Within a kids cartoon, which people were like, well, something new. Yeah. So I give it some credit for that. It's not, it's formulaic. It's the same thing every week, right? But fun characters. So it's a good solid B. We'll throw it.
A good solid B. A top of B or bottom of B?
Let's put it just a little above Salem.
All right.
Why not?
Oh, let me, please. Oh, does it not want me? There we go.
If it doesn't, that's fine. You're really not missing out on a whole lot there.
I got it. How about the show Evil?
I don't know this show.
What? It was on. It was
one of the show.
It was one of the ones on your list here. Well, we can just say because we don't know enough about Evil that it can just be down here.
That maybe one may have been my podcasting partners.
I was gonna say maybe it was
I think she said something about that one, but I don't know that show. I haven't seen that show. So
all right. Would you?
I apologize.
Do you want to rate it or leave it off on the bottom here?
I think we got to leave it on the bottom because it's not
Very
fair.
How about Supernatural?
If I go lower than I will literally I will have an angry mob outside of my house by tomorrow morning.
Is this a straight to D moment?
No. It's weirdly it has a Krampus episode and everything. I love.
Aww.
It's sweet. There's some really fun dynamics between them. I haven't seen all of them. I really can't say I've seen all of them. I've seen a chunk of them. But yeah, I mean it's fine. I'll go B.
Okay.
I'll go B.
Which order in B? Top, middle, bottom.
I'll be nice and say let's make it top because again, no more angry mobs.
No more angry mobs. The only possible angry mob that I think could show up would be Shirley Shields, who helps mod in the back half of the show. So when they get here, they might have thoughts about it. But yeah, Supernatural is haven't really seen much of it except for maybe in passing in like a doctor's office or something when they just have it on the TV because it's just a thing that people have on in the background. So
it is. It's fine. And it's fine. There's nothing bad about it. It doesn't compel me in the way that some of the other ones do. Somebody in the chat convince me why I need to spend the time to watch all seasons of Supernatural. That's the trick, right? Like if it were 3 seasons, I'd be like,
yeah, sure. Yeah.
And it's like what 14 seasons?
It's something obnoxious. Yeah.
Like, cannot find the time.
Yes. How about The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina?
Do I have to rank it based on all of the seasons or just like the first one? I don't know.
Well, why don't you? It could be. It's a listing of favorites and fondnesses. So if you want to put a caveat on it, that's absolutely okay with us.
Yeah. So the last 2 seasons kind of the rails. I think that there's still some venom, but it is like, and I read the comics of that before the series was even out, because I was just a really big fan of Aguirre Sakare's kind of take on that whole universe, and so I really liked the concept of it, and then the show itself differed pretty wildly from the comics, but I really enjoyed the first couple seasons, and then really the last 2 seasons just went really weird, especially the last season. So I'm gonna be honest and say I probably put it in the C level. Okay,
very fair. It sounds like a fair answer.
Yeah, it's not the worst.
Read the comics.
Definitely not the worst. Comics are good.
Read the comics.
Yeah, comics are very good.
All right, and last but definitely not least, The Owl House. Everybody is telling me to watch this. They're like, it's the best thing ever. Why is this great, and where does it go on our list here from S to D?
It instantly goes to S. It is instantly an S tier item.
Do we have an order yet, or are we still thinking
I'd put it after Owl House. I'll put it after Gravity, just barely after Gravity Falls for me.
Wow. Okay.
Because it is so good. It's one of the bi protagonist on a Disney cartoon for kids. So Luz, the main character in there, is her romantic interest is another woman, and she's been sort of hinted. It's sort of hinted that she, well, but at least a bi protagonist, if not a pan protagonist. And they're very, very straightforward with it. Like, it's not like all couched in a sort of like, there's this hinting around. We'll reveal after the series. No, it's very straightforward that she other women are interested in each other. So I love that. Then you have the witchy side of it, which is also written, at least partly written by Molly Knox Ostertag, Witch Boy graphic novel series, which is phenomenal. It's very, very smart. Alex Hirsch, who did Gravity Falls and did Bill Cipher and a couple of the other voices on Gravity Falls, is also one of the main characters on Owl House, and has lent some of the ideas to the team as well. There's hints that it actually is in the same. Bill Cipher may wind up making an appearance at some point.
Your mic cut out on that last one. The hint that it's in the same universe. Is that what you said?
As Gravity Falls, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So much good stuff. You've got this kind of older witch who is taking Luz in and teaching her about all this kind of stuff, while also Luz is trying to figure out how to get back home because her mom is missing her. Like, it's just amazing. It's just an amazing, really, really rich mythology. Great emotional arcs in the storytelling. Absolutely delightful series. Please watch the show.
Oh, I'm gonna read you this chat question verbatim. It's from Haydom T. Excuse me, Haydom T. It's from Haydom 4K, which is Dom's Twitch version of that name.
Okay.
Okay, I have to go off. I'm losing my mind. Shirley talked to me about Owl House for like an hour last week, and they never mentioned it was animated. Everything they described about Owl House makes so much more sense now that I know it isn't live action.
Yeah, it's animated. It's a kid's show. Like, it literally.
Yeah, it's like a kid's show.
Yeah.
That is
but
so
it's great.
funny.
It's really good.
Wow.
And it will also be kind of a closed loop. So just like Gravity Falls was 2 seasons, it's going to have 2 seasons, and it looks like maybe a series of 3 movies that will air next year, and then it'll kind of close up. So
love when people know how to end a story. I love it. I have a really hard time with shows that just kind of go on and on because of what happened to the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Like, you have to know when your story's gonna end, and I know that it's complicated because the way that TV works is you don't always know if you have another season, but you want to get booked so that people have jobs, but also like it kind of ruins the story sometimes. And basically what I'm saying is we need to fix the film industry so that people don't have this pressure.
No argument for me, for sure.
Cory, thank you so much. From Gravity Falls to Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, this is the tier list of serialized spookiness with a dash of silliness.
And I am so sorry that I don't get the perfect bell curve in here, but this is the truth. This is the
here
the
it is.
Truth.
Yes. So good. Thank you so much for being on our show
of course,
today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna switch back over to our interview page on Twitch, and yeah, this was awesome. Thank you, Sleuths, again for all of your hard work coming up with questions and figuring out fun stuff for us to talk about. Cory, thank you for playing Kentucky Route Zero with us. And I think after this, we're just going to keep playing on through. And it sounds like we're going to watch a short play together on Kentucky Route Zero Act 2.
I never said short. I never said short.
Okay, well, maybe we're going to watch a play together, folks. You were welcome to stay with us, but if you'd like to head out, now is your time, Cory. Thank you for being on the show. It was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, see ya.